Welcome to another edition of the MVFC First and Goal podcast. On this week's edition, I go behind the mic with a first-year voice of the North Dakota State Bison, Jeff Culhane. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, and excited to be here. It's fantastic.
Well, here we are already in the last week of the regular season. North Dakota State obviously is going to make the playoffs. But how would you sum up so far your first season as the voice of the Bison?
It's been interesting. It's been fun. It's been exciting. It really has been everything that I had anticipated it to be. You know, Bison fans are fantastic. They're phenomenal. They've really welcomed me in with open arms, and I couldn't have asked for a better reception. This football team is fantastic. The program's unbelievable. You know, Chris Kleiman and his coaching staff are top notch. They're second to none. So to be able to work with individuals like that, coaches like that on a daily basis, it's been a fun fall, to say the least, here in Fargo.
Well, you know, let's go back to when the job was first posted. You know, some people know this, but not everybody. You're originally from Mitchell, South Dakota. And notably, you spent time early on in your career at the University of South Dakota. You went on to Nebraska, where you hosted a post-game football show. You were the voice of their baseball team, the Husker baseball team, and filled in on men's basketball games as an analyst, among other things. Then you went to West Virginia for 3 years, hosted a pregame, halftime, and postgame football show. Were the voice for the women's basketball and baseball team there. And then also did some filling in on football and basketball. And then now at North Dakota State, you're the voice of the football, basketball, and baseball team. So what excited you most about the possibility of getting the NDSU job?
Well, I think for me, it's a lot like an assistant coach trying to move up to a head coaching position. Being at those places in my prior experience was outstanding. You know, West Virginia, obviously geographically very far from where I'm at right now, but a great experience to say the least with Mountaineer fans. A lot of similarities there between my time in Nebraska and my time in West Virginia, because you've got the big show in the state. There's no professional teams that are in either of those states, and the fan base and the people there, they flock to Husker football and Mountaineer football in both athletic departments. So to be a part of those institutions and be a part of those broadcasts was a real learning experience for me that really helped me make me who I am today. And then, of course, being able to see a different part of the country, connect with a lot of different people, that was a lot of fun as well. That was outstanding. The lure to North Dakota State from West Virginia and from Nebraska, you really don't have to say a whole lot. NDSU football, to me, is a program that is as exciting as a lot of Power 5 football programs out there. The success speaks for itself. 5 straight national championships, in the running now, obviously, for a 6th, right in the mix here this time of year. Their basketball program is outstanding. I know Tim Miles very well. I hosted his coach's show at Nebraska for a year, so have that connection. He's a South Dakota guy as well, so we kind of joked about that from time to time. And he and I talked about the job before it came open, or when it came open, excuse me, back in March, early April. And obviously he had great success at North Dakota State University as well. So to have the opportunity to come in and be the play-by-play voice for a university and athletic department as prestigious as NDSU was an easy decision, was a no-brainer, and a job that I really hoped that I would be worthy of being considered for, and so lucky to be here right now.
You know, as you talked about, I mean, you've been really involved, you know, for a number of years in college football, and have done play-by-play for a number of different sports, but you weren't necessarily the voice of a major college football team until you went to North Dakota State. So what has that transition been like, you know, and how nervous were you for that first game against Charleston Southern this year?
Transition's been great. I was more anxious than anything. I always talk about, to me, you're only nervous when you're not ready. And I think you're actually more anxious when you are ready to go and do something. It's a similar type of feeling, but a different type of anxiety. I wasn't really nervous. I was more anxious. For me, being around and being in the booth at the University of Nebraska, being in the booth at West Virginia University, I didn't call those games, but it was kind of like a football player or an athlete who was injured. That individual still, even though they're injured and they don't play, they're still taking repetitions and still taking mental notes on what's going on and how to do this or how to get better here. And, I really spent my time at Nebraska and West Virginia listening and understanding the passion of those fan bases and what the responsibility is in that role as the play-by-play announcer of a big-time football program. So, when I came to North Dakota State, I had called, I've called plenty of high school football in my career. Out in West Virginia in the eastern part of the country, I actually called high school football on television in Pittsburgh, in southwestern PA, some of the best high school football around the United States.
Nice.
So, even though that I had not called a game in a period of time where I'd called a big-time college football game, I really felt like I was ready. I felt like, in a lot of ways, if your craft is play-by-play, if you call basketball, if you call baseball, it will translate over. It'll take work, but it will translate over onto the football field. I played college football for 4 years at Dakota Wesleyan University. So a sport that I've been around a lot. I understand, obviously, very well.
Yeah.
And I was more anxious than anything. Not so much nervous, anxious for that first game. And I probably, outside of Chris Kleiman getting a win in that first game versus Charleston Southern, I was probably the happiest person in Fargo that one was out of the way.
I'm sure. One of the other big appealing things about the North Dakota State job is that you got the opportunity to be part of a new sports talk radio station at Bison 1660 that was launching, and co-host a daily talk show, The Insiders. How do you and Jeremy try and differentiate yourself from the other sports talk shows in Fargo, and how do you feel like the show has made you a better play-by-play broadcaster?
Yeah, Kelly, it's a great question. Getting here in late June, it was a sprint to our launch date, which was August 1st. And I have to thank a lot of people here for their help. There's such great ownership and leadership at the new flagship home of North Dakota State University Sports and Athletics. And, James Stad, our owner, Nancy Odney's our COO, John Austin's our operations manager, individuals like Chris Hansen, people that I work with on a daily basis here were so great in helping getting this station ready and on the air and helping with little things behind the scenes that people wouldn't think about, that we put a ton of work into and a lot of planning and a lot of time and a lot of preparation. So it starts with those people and their leadership and their vision and their investment and their help with it. Jeremy and I think, have a relationship where, I just met Jeremy back in the spring, and we've been on the air now for a little over 3 months. And that first show we did together on August 1st, there really wasn't a process of getting to know one another on the air. As you know, when you're with somebody new, sometimes there's a feeling out period. Sometimes there's a time where you step on somebody with how you talk or with the question or this and that. I think Jeremy and I have the unique relationship where we have a really strong understanding of each other's style, each other's feel, and how the show is supposed to flow. So that's been great. Jeremy has a vast knowledge of the FCS. He has a vast knowledge of North Dakota State athletics. As he's been the sideline reporter here for the last 10 years. He's called games here. He's the color analyst for the basketball broadcast. We work together on that as well. So he knows NDSU. He knows the FCS. His knowledge of the playoffs and the bracket, there's nobody better, period, He is the Joe Lunardi of the FCS playoff brackets. We call him
Nice.
Jeremy Brackett's, kind of goofing with him. But so we've had fun as far as differentiating ourselves from a lot of other sports talk stations. Quite honestly, the only other sports show here in Fargo was a 1-hour show daily from noon to 1. And that really was it in Fargo, which was a little surprising to me. I honestly thought there would be maybe a little more with the hunger and the thirst of NDSU football and NDSU athletics. So, there was a great opportunity. And I think with this new station and with our shows and how we talk NDSU football and NDSU sports and discuss the FCS, and gosh, this time of year with the playoffs right around the corner, the anticipation is so high. I think we're just doing a good job right now of promoting our new station. I think people are finding us. I feel like they're enjoying what we're bringing to them right now. And I mean, in North Dakota State University football, I mean, that speaks for itself. So when you're able to talk about that and discuss Bison football with some of the most passionate fans out there, I think it'll take care of itself in the long run.
Yeah. I'm sure you get asked this question quite a bit, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up. Scott Miller was so beloved in that area. He was the longtime voice of North Dakota State, and sadly passed away from cancer back in February. How did you approach following him, honoring his memory, while also being your own voice and your own person?
Yeah, another great question, Kelly. I mean, number one, you can't replace Scott. You can't do it. And, very, very bittersweet, I think, the moment for the new hire for a lot of people, because Scott Miller's great. He's a legend and will always be remembered here at North Dakota State University. The work and the excellence and how he dedicated himself every day, every moment to Bison athletics and to his broadcasts and to his craft. You don't find that very often. You don't see that very often, and you can't replace that. I would do Bison fans injustice. I would do Scott injustice. I do myself injustice if I tried to be Scott. I can't do it, and nobody can. For me, I knew that I had to carry on his excellence and do as good of a job as I possibly can, and that was being myself and preparing and giving the fan base what they deserve. And it was, definitely tough, not easy. I'd be lying if I sit here and said that there were nights where I wondered if I put in the amount of work, if I was going to be able to do it the way that people needed it to be done or had been accustomed to be it done. I knew that it would definitely get there at some point. But I think we've had a good we've had a good season. I think the station has helped in some ways as well. I think folks being able to hear me prior to that first game definitely, I think, helped and ease the transition a little bit in a lot of respects. So, honor Scott. We try and, honor him during the football broadcast. We play some of his best highlights during the games. We try and include him in a lot of our production pieces. Of course, his "My Oh My" call will never go away. That will always be ingrained into the hearts and minds of Bison fans forever. And so we do hopefully the justice that he deserves, and hopefully in everyone's eyes we've been able to come in and perform and execute a quality broadcast for folks out there the way they would expect and the way that he always did.
Your family, specifically your dad and your uncle, have roots in radio, and so how did that influence you? Choosing this career path?
Well, when I was young, I think I was 6 years old, my dad was the color analyst for our high school boys basketball team in Mitchell, South Dakota. So I would go to the games and I would hang out in the radio booth at 5, 6 years old. And I still remember to this day one of the games my dad called, and for folks that don't know that are watching this around the Missouri Valley, the state of South Dakota is very passionate about high school basketball, very, very passionate. And my hometown was a big high school basketball town. So you grew up wanting to play high school basketball in Mitchell, South Dakota, wanting to be a Mitchell Colonel. And that's a corn kernel, not an Army Colonel, by the way, in case everyone's wondering out there. But I still remember one of the calls. There was a blocking foul in a district championship game that went against us, and I always remember my dad's reaction. He was so flabbergasted at how poor the call was that he thought in his mind, and the opponent ended up making 2 free throws with no time left to beat the high school team my dad called the games for. And from there, just kind of took off. I played sports. I was a guy that sports have always been a big part of my life, so I've always wanted to stay connected. Growing up, going out in the backyard and playing catch with my dad and shooting hoops and playing football and baseball and all that stuff. Spent a lot of time doing that. And watching a game, I found myself not necessarily watching the game specifically, but also listening to the announcers and what they said and how they said things and how they positioned certain statements about plays, and even as a kid. So there was always some sort of a draw to it for me. There was always a connection to it growing up. And, it's funny to bring up, but I would do things like I would announce my cousin's video games when I was 10 or 11 years old on his Walkman microphone. That's probably looks like a refrigerator now. That was really cool back then. We would have on baseball trips growing up in the back of the bus, we would do these roundtable discussions like you and I are doing right now, and just kind of goof off and have fun in the back of the bus as we traveled the road games. So it's always been a part of who I am. My uncle Kevin was the voice of the University of South Dakota, the voice of the Coyotes for a long time, and very passionate about broadcasting. And a very good announcer as well. You can not match his passion or doubt how excited he was during his broadcast and his play-by-play. And I worked for him in my first broadcasting job out of college, and really worked hard at it. Cut my teeth doing a little bit of everything: hosting a talk show, doing play-by-play for high school sports and college sports, and being a color analyst and a sideline reporter and full-time. Every job you could think of possibly, I packed into about 2.5 years in Yankton and Vermillion, South Dakota. So both very influential. Obviously, when you have that tie within your family lines, it makes an impact on you, and it certainly did on me.
You just touched a little bit on some of the things you did to cut your teeth, but in the grand scheme of things, you took a really unconventional path into sports broadcasting. It was interesting for me to see, you majored in business and not broadcasting. You didn't necessarily go to a typical journalism school, but you were able to get the reps at a really early age. How did you make that path work for you?
A lot of it was the reps, one, and making sure I made the connections as well. A lot of people, and I did this also, asked the question: what do I need to do to get a job? What do I need to do to move up? Because everybody has a goal. Everybody has a dream. It's such a competitive industry, competitive business. It's tough. It's really tough. And there were definitely days where I thought, man, I'm not going to do this. I don't think I can do this anymore. A lot of work, a lot of time, not a lot of pay, as folks out there in the business understand. And, I think for me, it goes back to a couple of things. It goes back to starting young. I started out in radio when I was 14. So I started doing weekend shifts and worked at an oldie station doing news, weather, and sports when I was 14 years old. Nice. I'll never forget how nervous, you talk about how nervous I was for the first game. It can't even begin to compare how nervous I was for my first on-air weekend shift at KORN Radio in Mitchell, South Dakota, when I was 14 years old. Just beyond terrified of talking into a microphone. But there was a fine line. Do you get a job? Do you go to a graduate school? I thought about going to Syracuse. I thought about going to Nebraska. I thought about going to USC to get the graduate degree in broadcast journalism. And everybody I asked, everybody I talked to when I was 20, 21 years old, they said, you've already got what those people don't have right now, and that's the experience. So get out, start working, find your way, and just rep it out. Go out and do it. And that's what I did. That's what I did with my first job. And so much of life and anything right now, I think, is not only how good you are, but who you know, and making the connections. And I think the two things that I would tell people that are in broadcasting that are asking the same question I asked: what do I need to do? How do I move up? How do I get that job? Well, you got to be able to work at it and understand the hours are going to be brutal. You're going to work holidays. You're going to work days that others have off and that are enjoying their time and enjoying their weekends where you will not. And that's part of the deal. You got to rep it out. You just got to keep repping it, keep doing it, and figure out who you are as a broadcaster. And then number two, and probably more importantly, and a lot of, I've seen a lot of the Skype conversations you've had with the other play-by-play guys around the valley, and these guys have been doing it a lot longer than I have. So they're probably laughing at me right now as I'm giving everybody else advice. But I think they would agree, if meet as many people as you can. Put yourself out there a little bit, make the connections, stay in touch with folks, and do those things. You never know when a hello or a how are you doing or an out of the blue text to somebody will affect that person or potentially help you out down the road with your dreams and your path as well. And that was a big part of how I got to where I did, both at Nebraska, at West Virginia, and then I think in some regards also here at North Dakota State as well.
Speaking of Nebraska and West Virginia, those two programs really dominate the state's landscape. What have been the biggest similarities you've seen at North Dakota State, with those programs as far as that kind of landscape thing? And what's been the biggest difference?
Big passion, huge following. It's the biggest show in the state. There's no question about that. The following and the energy of the fan base is, I'll say this with Nebraska and West Virginia, there aren't as many, numbers per se, because you have the 90,000 seat stadium at Nebraska, the 60,000 seat stadium at West Virginia. But the Fargo Dome and Gate City Bank Field has an environment unique to any other out there. It is an amazing atmosphere, and it's full every game. It's a packed house. To me, it's the premier atmosphere in the FCS in college football. It's just a whole nother level. And, the passion, the following, the energy of the fan bases from my time at Nebraska and West Virginia, it definitely reminds me and reflects upon what the fans are here at North Dakota State University. As far as the differences are concerned, I would just say probably the numbers, I suppose. Nebraska has the 92,000 seat stadium. West Virginia has the 60,000 seat stadium. But that really doesn't mean a whole lot. It doesn't mean anything less as far as NDSU is concerned. North Dakota State, in my mind, with their football program, is a team that can compete in Power 5 conferences. It's a team that definitely can compete and win in Group of 5 conferences at the FBS level. So it's an exciting program to be around, and an exciting athletic department that is having so much success and having so much fun right now. And I think they're just continuing that upward trend, and the excitement, you can just feel it. The buzz is palpable around everything they have going on.
My conversation with Jeff continues shortly, but if you're enjoying this edition of the MVFC First and Goal, check out all the Lineup Media Group podcasts featuring your favorite sports as well as non-sports podcasts too. Now back to the show. Jeff, what did you learn from working with Greg Sharp, the University of Nebraska play-by-play voice, and how has he shaped your career?
I learned from Greg Sharp a lot of things. One, I learned a lot of things from Greg. The line that he texted me before the Charleston Southern game, he actually texted me his thought process for, I think, himself as well for football, and it was pace, poise, time, and score. Those were the four things he texted me, and I honestly think with Greg, he's so good. He's just an amazing play-by-play man. He's a better person. I think there are a lot of people that take you're in broadcasting and you take it seriously, and I'm going to be great, and I'm going to show people how good I am. And I think one of the things Greg really taught me was, it's okay to have a good time and have fun. And I mean it from a standpoint of he's a fun-loving guy who just cares about everybody. Always ask you how you're doing, wondering what's going on in your life, and it has really become a great friend to me, as have all the guys at Nebraska that I spent time with. Matt Davison is their color analyst, played football at Nebraska. Talk about fun-loving. There's a fun-loving individual right there. And then Lane Grindle, mentioning connections. Lane and I worked together at USD for about a 4-month period was all, about 4 to 6 months. He got a job at Nebraska. 2.5 years later, he and I stayed in contact. We were very good friends. I think we were two young guys at the time that enjoyed, the broadcast aspect of it and loved what we did and wanted to be great at it. 2.5 years later, a position opened up. He asked if I'd be interested. I said absolutely, and that's how I got to Nebraska. We spent 6 years together there, 6.5, until I left for West Virginia. And now Lane is one of the play-by-play radio announcers for the Milwaukee Brewers in Major League Baseball.
Wow.
Yep. So all those guys, it was an amazing experience, and we're still good friends, and we still talk and text on a daily basis. But as far as Greg Sharp is concerned, I think it's his professionalism, his attitude he carries towards the job, but also when the microphone is turned off, that just a great person, a great individual, and someone you would, you think about guys in big jobs, you think they got huge egos and whatever. Not that guy. Great person, and he's one of my very good friends.
That's really great to hear. While you were at West Virginia, you were the IMG Radio Network's national play-by-play voice last year for the American Athletic Conference Championship for men's basketball, which just so happened to be a 4-overtime thriller between Cincinnati and UConn. How did you get that opportunity, first of all, with IMG? I know West Virginia was an IMG school, but, also, would you consider it one of the greatest basketball games you've been a part of as a broadcaster?
I think it's probably the greatest game I've been a part of as a broadcaster from a basketball perspective.
Yeah.
Number one, how did I get it? It goes back to the conversation about connections and developing those. And Chris Ferris is the head of broadcasting and audio at IMG. Nebraska, while I was there, was not an IMG property when I started, and then became a part of the IMG company. There were a lot of things about Nebraska with what we did on a daily basis that we did not interact with the corporate offices. So I met Chris. He came out on a site visit to Nebraska to see all of what we did and if we could be brought into the IMG corporate studios in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And so I met Chris then and had a conversation with him, and we talked a lot and stayed in touch. Chris was the person that brought me out to West Virginia. That's how I got out there. And that's how I think I got more at that time, got more ingrained into the IMG family, if you will. And we basically started from scratch at West Virginia. It was also a very unique situation with a late third-tier rights transition, a lot of things going on with a new radio network and a brand new broadcast. And it was a hectic time in the summer of 2013. And Chris and I got to spend a lot of time together. And I was responsible for really helping get that radio network rolling and off on the right foot. And so, but Chris is a guy that is in charge of 80 plus properties and college radio networks around the country, and a guy that rubs elbows with all the big names. And Carter Blackburn is a protege of his. Corey Provis, who's the play-by-play voice for the Twins, started out at IMG. And so another individual who has been around all the big names, but you wouldn't know it because he's such a good person as well. And he asked me, every year IMG produces and broadcasts the American tournament for the conference, and they've got a nice relationship with the league. And he asked me if I would want to come down, and I said absolutely, would love to come down. So joined Chris and Adam Witten, who is another excellent play-by-play broadcaster, now the play-by-play guy at Appalachian State for their football program. And it just worked out. It was funny how it worked out, Kelly, where literally it was, okay, here's games 1, 2, 3, 4 through 10 or whatever. Adam, you're doing game 1. Jeff, you're doing game 2. Adam 3, Jeff 4. And when I found I was doing game 4, I realized that it was going to be the UConn-Cincinnati game. So everyone knows that UConn and Cincinnati have two of the premier basketball programs in the country. And it was going to be, I felt like that was the game for that tournament, at least at the start. Depending on who won, who lost, who would play later in the weekend, that was the game that I think a lot of people nationally looked at as the best game of that weekend. And I was just lucky enough by pure chance, by the number system, that I got to call that game. I remember I was going to the Amway Center arena, and for whatever weird reason, I told myself, something weird's going to happen today. Just make sure that you're ready for it. And the game wasn't great in the first half. It was like a UConn-Cincinnati game. It was almost like a football game. Physical, nobody can make a shot, a lot of defensive struggles, and points were at a premium. And then shots started to fall. The game got close. The game got tight at the end, and it lent itself to what was the Jalen Adams half-court heave at the buzzer to tie it up and send it to a fourth overtime. And just lucky to be there. Just happy that I was able to capture the moment, which was an amazing moment, and pretty special to be a part of a game like that.
Yeah, I can't even imagine it. I remember watching that game and just how incredible it was to watch it as a basketball fan. So, on your birthday this year, I believe it was your birthday, you got a special wake-up call at 7 a.m. from the North Dakota State pep band. Somebody tipped me off on this, so I saw the video. And I believe your fiance was in on the little trick too. For people that haven't seen the video, share kind of the backstory of that and what happened.
Well, my Great Dane, we own a Great Dane who is about a year and a half old. She now has post-traumatic stress from the band in my living room waking us all up at 6 a.m. The backstory is I gave kudos to a coworker earlier, Chris Hansen. I'm taking that back now at this point in time. He helps us on our football broadcasts and is a host and an analyst of sorts. He decided that it would be fun, and it was not my birthday, by the way. That was just the running joke amongst the Gold Star marching band. So they sang happy birthday to me. I'm like, it's not my birthday, guys. It's not my birthday, but they did it anyway. So he got a portion of the Gold Star marching band to wake up and come to my home at 6 a.m. It was homecoming week. It was a homecoming week prank. They They broadcast the entire thing. They captured it on radio. They captured it on video. And I had no idea. My fiance was in on it. She was a part of it. And so I believe 25 or 30 members of the marching band are in my living room at 6 a.m. and they just start playing the On Bison fight song.
All right, here we go. We're about to wake Jeff Culhane up real bad, real bad. Let's go up the stairs.
It was the loudest thing, I'm telling you, it was the loudest thing, Kelly, that you'd ever heard. It was unbelievably loud. I thought it was a car alarm at first. I didn't know what was going on. And then I'm looking for an alarm clock to turn off. There's no alarm going off. And needless to say, the joke was on me. The prank was definitely on me.
So what are you going to do to get your fiance back for being a part of that, I guess is the question.
Oh, the plan. There are some plans in the works right now. I can't divulge any secrets because then my cover would be blown. So there will be some payback at some point in time. I just have to find the right place and right time to make sure that happens correctly.
You know, I was thinking about it too. It's actually really lucky that like you don't sleep with a gun right near you too. I mean, that you didn't come out of your bedroom with like a gun because you were so startled, or that, you know, you heard people in your house, like the dog didn't go nuts, because I mean, that could have been really bad.
The dog went nuts. She did. Luckily, she's not an aggressive dog. She's more of a lover, not a fighter. But yes, you're right. Luckily, I didn't run out there without figuring out what was going on first. That was a key part to the entire prank.
Well, speaking of your fiance, her name is Sarah Kennedy. And what are you willing to share about her and, you know, what she's meant to your life and, you know, this journey that you've been on traversing the country?
Yeah, she's been my partner in crime over the last 3 years. And I met her in Morgantown, West Virginia. It was a Thursday night. Morgantown does not have a lot of places to go as far. I'm a wine drinker, so I enjoy a nice glass of wine every once in a while. And she happened to be working at a very nice place that really was one of the main places in Morgantown that served very good wine. And so ironically enough, it was right across the street from our offices in Morgantown. So I figured, I saw it every day, and I got to go over there at some point. It looks like a very nice place. So I went there, and it was a Thursday night. She was working. She waited on me, and that's where our relationship began. And you know, she's meant the world to me. I mean, she you know, has really helped me in my path and joined me here in North Dakota, and we're trying to winterize her as we speak, as winter is on the way. Being a girl from the South and probably not understanding the wind and the level of snow that we're going to get, and then stick around for a 4 or 5 month period of time. So trying to get her accustomed to that here this first winter that we have together in Fargo, but couldn't do it without her. She has meant the world to me, and we get married on July 15th in Wheeling, West Virginia. That's
exciting. Congratulations. And lucky for her, it's actually been a fairly mild fall, and it's not winter, I guess, so far, but I was up in South Dakota twice for games this year for the Valley, and I was stunned how warm it was for for being October up there.
It's been good, Kelly, and probably lucky for me that's been warm, because if not, I would certainly hear about it from Sarah, with it being our first fall up here. But no, it's been great. The weather's been phenomenal. Hopefully the snow can hold off a little bit longer, but we certainly know that it's on the way.
Well, my husband and I would probably get along with you guys really well because we're big wine drinkers too. We belong to several wine clubs. We went to Napa Valley. We kind of had a tradition where we would go every summer for a period of years. So we belong to a bunch of wine clubs in Napa that send us cases of wine, every quarter.
You
so.
bet. You bet.
If you haven't been to Napa, I highly recommend it.
We have actually. We have been to Napa. I've been there 3 times myself. I've got family out in that area. It is truly one of the more beautiful places on earth. It really is, and I know exactly what you're saying. And I hear you. It's a lot of fun, to say the least.
Jeff, I believe I saw that you went skydiving in California several years ago. What inspired that? And where does that rank on your list of, most adventurous things you've done?
Yeah, that was back, probably 5 years ago now, 4 years ago now, a little over 4 years ago. Was going out to visit some family. And we had a day where, we were able to just traveling around the coast, and an opportunity presented itself where skydiving was an option that day, and I said, why not? Let's do it. On vacation, let's go for it. And was able to skydive over Santa Cruz, along the beach, over the water, which I believe there's only one other place in the world that does something like that. And it was one heck of an experience. Where would I rank it? Sometimes you forget that you did it because you get so busy and everything else that you're doing. But as far as thrills are concerned, it is right there at the top, and probably a little bit crazy. I don't know if I'll ever do it again, but at least I can say I've done it one time.
And you live to tell about it too.
That's right. That's the best part. That's the main part right there. Exactly.
A couple more questions for you. You were obviously on the call this year for the Bison's FBS upset of Iowa. And you had a really memorable call at the end where you notably said, "Horns up, Hawkeyes down."
Fisher to snap. Davis will hold. This is for the win over the Iowa Hawkeyes at Kinnick Stadium. Good snap, spot, kick, on the way. The kick is up. It's good! And the Bison have done it again. North Dakota State has knocked off the Iowa Hawkeyes. The first loss ever by the Hawkeyes versus an FCS foe. The 6th straight win for the Bison over FBS teams. The final, 23-21, horns up, Hawkeyes down.
Was that something that just came to you in the moment of the broadcast and just the situation there at the end and the excitement, or was it something you had thought about? Okay, this is what I might say, if they're able to pull an upset.
So there's a couple parts to it. So horns up is the social media hashtag for NDSU. So I felt like incorporating that into my final calls would be kind of fun, kind of attach to what NDSU has on the social media side. And, it's a slogan here at North Dakota State. And I actually had done it the first 2 games of the year, which were both very exciting. Overtime wins over Charleston Southern and Eastern Washington. So it's sort of what it has been my go-to post-game slogan call, whatever you want to call it, when the Bison win. And fortunately, there have been a lot of those victories here in my first season. But a little backstory on it. I have a good friend in the broadcasting business. His name is Brian Haney. He is also in the first year as the new play-by-play voice of the Kansas Jayhawks. And so he and I have our paths have mirrored each other in a lot of ways. He was the Texas Tech baseball and men's basketball play-by-play announcer while I was at West Virginia.
Okay.
And so the slogan for Texas Tech is "Guns Up." That's their slogan. So Brian would use the term "guns up, opponent down" for his basketball and men's and baseball calls after wins. And I have heard that many times, and I thought, well, that's kind of catchy. It's kind of cool. And so when I arrived at North Dakota State with the horns up side of it, I thought that might be something that would translate over here as well. So that's sort of where it came to fruition, how it sort of came to be. The entire call itself, when Cam Peterson made the field goal, I don't know if I could recreate it for you right now. I was kind of like Will Ferrell in Old School in the debate scene, where it just went. It just kind of came out. I didn't script anything. I remember that I woke up in Iowa City that morning. I was so excited for the game that I woke up at 4:15 in the morning for an 11 a.m. kickoff. And I was just going over some stuff and writing some notes down. And I always write out my scenes. And I was thinking, if North Dakota State wins this game, it will probably be in a dramatic fashion of some sort. It's not going to be a 2-touchdown win. It's not going to be a 10-point win. Something big's going to happen. And I thought, should I script something? Should I write something out? And that was what I was debating in the morning. And I decided not to. I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I want it to be spontaneous. I want it to be exciting, and I want it to capture the moment. And that was the thought process behind the entire final call of that win, which was such a momentous victory in NDSU athletics. Yeah,
I mean, you've been a part of some really exciting big wins this year, from that game to the 2 overtime wins. What stands out most so far about this season? And do you think the Bison have another really good shot of making it a possible 6th straight national title?
Kelly, I think the thing that stands out about this first year is the overall culture of the football program. It's truly amazing. And when you have, you hear it all the time. When you have great teams, they've got great culture. When you have teams that are struggling and maybe they go through a coaching change, what's the term you always hear? The coach has to change the culture. They've got to change the mentality. And the culture here is just on a whole nother level. I can't compare it to the great programs at the FBS level. I don't know. I've never been there. I've never been to Alabama. I haven't been around Ohio State and Michigan or Clemson right now with what Dabo's doing down there. But what I can speak to is the culture of this place, and the football program is second to none. They've dealt with significant injuries this year to great players.
Nick DeLuca's an All-American.
Nate Tangway just got hurt. Unfortunately, he's done for the year. He's an All-American level type player. But they have this next man up mentality where they move on. They feel awful for their teammates and for their friend, but they realize that there's something going on here that's bigger than one individual. And as a team together, they feel like they can accomplish anything, and they have done that over the last 5 years. I mean, 5 straight national championships. It's unheard of at any level of college football. It's never been done before. And there's no doubt. I mean, right now it's a team that's 9-1. They're 6-1 in the Valley. They've got one more left this week with South Dakota. And then you wait to see what your fate is as far as the rankings are concerned from the CS playoff committee. The goal, of course, is to one of those top 2 teams. It feels like all of its goals are in front of it, and a 6th straight national championship is something that's definitely being talked about.
Last question for you, Jeff. You're a pretty young guy. You're 33. We're about the same age. Are you where you envision being right now at 33 years old in this career?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think everybody would say they want all their dreams and goals to happen right away. Did I necessarily envision myself being in Fargo, North Dakota as the voice and the play-by-play man of NDSU? No, I did not. I really didn't know where my career path was going to take me. I just knew that I wanted to have the opportunity to be the play-by-play guy at a place like NDSU, at a place that cared, at a place that had fans that are as passionate as these and that love their program and love their teams and have an expectation out of the broadcast side of it that makes what we do, I think, feel important or feel like we're providing something for people out there, that we're doing some good for folks that are locked into it and want to listen and enjoy it and love their team and like to listen to a broadcast as well. So, at age 33, I think I'm pretty lucky to be where I'm at. I really do. I definitely have worked hard for it. There's no question about that. It hasn't come by, just happenstance or on a whim. There's been a method, there's been a plan, there's been a lot of hard work and sacrifice, and a lot of luck too. There's certainly luck along the way, but I'm definitely excited and living out a dream that is as fun as anything I've ever done.
Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you want to share?
Gosh, I think we've covered it. I think you've done great prep here. You've dug into my career path, and we've talked about my fiance. She'll be happy about that, so that'll be good. And no, this has been fun. This has been great. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad we got to do it, and I kept you a lot longer than I said I was going to. But it's definitely been worth it. I wish you could see too, because you're a dog lover. I have a chocolate lab, and she's been over here like trying to get on my lap here on the side. You can't see it on the video, but I think she's ready to go on a walk here in a little bit. So I appreciate it and look forward to. I know I live here in the Carbondale area, so I didn't get to meet you officially yet this season because SIU and North Dakota State didn't play, but I look forward to in the future.
Absolutely, Kelly. Look forward to that and appreciate all that you do.
Thank you. Well, like what you heard from Jeff Culhane in our MVFC First and Goal podcast, check out the many other podcast offerings from Lineup Media Group, including one of their newest shows, Fairways and Greens, which features the Vegas golf coach. Head to lineupmedia.fm for more info or to subscribe.